Julian, you wrote in your story about how you've avoided writing articles on mascots and even having conversations about them. Can you explain why?
Sure. I moved to Washington, D.C. 3 years ago in 2017. Before that, I always believed that, as Native people in the United States and Canada, we had bigger fish to fry. We fall to the bottom of virtually every statistical category. And as a journalist, it wasn't, I'll be honest, it wasn't the story that I wanted to write or wanted to tell. But when I moved to this city in 2017, I was surrounded by that umber buffalo nickel head logo everywhere I went. And I always wanted to start a conversation with the people I saw wearing it, who often were, Black folks who are from here in DC. But I never knew where to begin. So I eventually actually got an assignment and was confronted with that sort of personal racial struggle.
You also compile a list of many things that Native Americans have done to try to change the Washington NFL team name, petitions and lawsuits, many more. Why do you think that this is the time that it might work?
The United States and, tangentially Canada are in a moment of reckoning for the police killing and brutality against Black people. And I really do think that this has changed the zeitgeist on issues of racial injustice. I do not believe that we'd be having this conversation about finally changing the Washington football team's name if it were not for the Black Lives Matter movement. And of course, also the second half of that equation is that last week, a group of investors totaling over $600 billion in their net worth asked the main sort of sponsors of the team, FedEx, PepsiCo, and Nike, to pressure the franchise to change their name. And I think the combination of the sort of cultural shift that we're undergoing right now with regards to race and the fact that money talks has significantly transformed this particular issue.
So, what needs to happen to see other teams change their names or their mascots? Does it take like one big one to make the change, or do you see them being impacted or to change some other way?
Well, we've already seen the Cleveland baseball team suggest that they're going to consider changing their name. They're called the Indians, and just a couple of years ago, they removed the offensive Chief Wahoo logo from their memorabilia. So I think that, there is a moment of reckoning. Actually, last week, I also was really excited when I saw this story circulating that said that Patrick Mahomes, the stud quarterback of the Kansas City football team, was not going to sign a deal with the franchise unless they changed their name and mascot. I was really disappointed when I found out that tweet was actually fake news and a real hoax, because I actually texted my mom and sent a Slack to my work saying oh my God, Mahomes, exclamation point. He stood up for us, because it meant a lot to me, as a Native person, that a Black athlete would take a stand for us. It meant a lot when we saw Colin Kaepernick show up at Alcatraz to honor the history of the occupation there this year and in years past. So I hope that this is not the end here. Of course, we should not be celebrating the history of genocide and violence against Native people on this continent on the sports field. There are many other ways that we could be recognizing that history, and having fans get drunk and don a headdress and put on fake war paint and do their sort of red face racist act is not one of them. And hopefully, this conversation continues. I think that a lot of folks are finally, for the first time, probably hearing that linguists, historians, and Native people ourselves consider the team name to be racist. And I hope that forces a conversation about many of the other Native team names and mascots that we see in professional sports and college sports.
Well, we thank you for taking the time to out of your day to talk about this, and I guess we just wait and see where it goes from here.
Thanks so much for having me. It'll mean a lot to my Kia'a to see me on APTN.
Excellent.